Another golden opportunity being granted to us to be here today in this 12 scriptural month as we look towards our next encampment, preparing ourselves to meet with Yahweh and with Yahshua the Messiah. Through the word of Yahweh, we are encouraged to always be pure and be ready, so that when we are called and invited, we can be placed next to Yahshua, sitting at the table, and also receiving the blessing that is there for us. Let us learn to fear Yahweh through His word. This is what the wise man Solomon tells us, and keep reminding us that the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom and knowledge. And those who keep His commandments will love the path that He has placed here for us, even Yahshua the Messiah, to walk in, because it is a path of light and not darkness. Let's turn to John chapter 8. The scripture tells us clearly that if we believe in Yahweh and Yahshua the Messiah, for He is the light that came into the world, we would not ever walk in darkness, but we will remain faithful until the end. Let us look at verse 3. And the scribe and the Pharisees bring a woman taken in adultery, and having set her in the middle, they said to him, Teacher, this woman has been taken in adultery in the very act. In the law of Moses commanded us to stone such. What then do you say of her? And this they try. And this they said, trying him, that they might have something to accuse him. But Yahshua stooped down and with his fingers wrote on the ground. But when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said to them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again he stooped down and with his fingers wrote on the ground. And they, when they heard it, went out one by one, beginning from the oldest even to the last. And Yahshua was left alone, and the woman where she was in the middle. And Yahshua lifted up himself and said to her, Woman, where are they? Did no man condemn you? And she said, No man, Master. And Yahshua said, Neither do I condemn you. Go your way. From now on, sin no more. Again, therefore Yahshua spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. The light came into the world. Mankind was walking in darkness before Yahshua the Messiah came. Even though they had the Torah, they were not living by the Torah. In many places Yahshua said He came not for the righteous, but He came for sinners, to help a sinner to turn from living a life displeasing to Yahweh, to live a life pleasing unto Almighty Yahweh. And you do this by following the instructions laid down in the Torah. And lo and behold, the scribes and the Pharisees, who profess to be living a life pleasing to Almighty Yahweh, found this woman, breaking the law of Yahweh, the Torah. Yahshua came to help such an individual. not to condemn, but to save an individual living a life of sin. What were they, as scribes and Pharisees, called to do, even prior to the coming of Yahshua the Messiah? Were they not called to do like John the Baptist did? Prepare the way for his coming? Let the people know the life that they should be living, even by example? Were they doing that? But lo and behold, they found this woman, they say, living or committing adultery, even in the very act. So they brought her to Yahshua, and they put her in the middle, maybe making a circle around her. So she cannot escape, she cannot do anything, because, yeah, you're going to die here today, because the Torah says you're going to be stoned. Maybe some resistance she did have as they seek to take her to Yahshua. So they surround her, put her in the middle, and reading the Torah to her maybe before, say, the Torah say you have to be put to death. And she said, no, I don't want to die. Okay. I know I heard of a man preaching, and I don't think he's saying that we're going to die for sin. Right now, we'll be stoned by you. Okay, well, let's go to him. And so they took her to Yahshua. They said to Yahshua, teacher, rabbi, this woman, maybe she mentioned him as I said earlier, this woman has been taken in adultery. You know the Torah. We catch her in the very act. There's no way that you can say, well, all I know that, all I saw, all I didn't see. Yes, we saw. In the very act, we saw her. Now in the law of Moses, we read that. You know what we are talking about? It commands us. Hear these words that they are saying. It commands us to stone such. More or less, this is what they said in her ear. According to the law, we have the right to stone you. Don't resist. Oh, you want to go to Yahshua? Okay. According to the law, you remember, we have been given the authority to condemn, stone to death, judge you and condemn you. What then do you say to her? She want to hear. We are telling her you're going to say the same thing, because it's the law. You didn't come against the law. We hear you teaching the Torah. What do you say about this? They want to trap him too. Can he escape, they might be saying? Now we see, he say he's going to help people all about. Look, the Torah have it here. Let me see how we going to help this one. This they said, trying him. Yahshua had more wisdom than they. That they might have something to accuse him. But Yahshua stooped down, he didn't answer them. The first thing he did, he saw, as we see, where they're coming from. Notice what they are coming with. He didn't open his mouth. Didn't say anything against the law of Moses, as they say, which is actually Yahweh's law. He didn't speak anything against the word. Didn't say anything about this woman being condemned or not, stoned or not. But he went down. He stooped down. What is he doing? He isn't answering us. What he's doing down there? With his fingers, he started to write. He started to write. I'm not speaking now. You want me to speak, but I'm going to write. Just like you read in the Torah, read what I'm writing here. He stooped down with his fingers. He wrote on the ground. But when they continue asking him, we're asking you, what do you think? What should be done according to the Torah? He lifted up himself and he said to them, he that is without sin among you, you want to hear me? Okay. Let him first cast a stone at her. You that have no sin, do that. You didn't read that in the Torah, right? No, you didn't read that. But remember, if you are enforcing Torah, number one to begin, you have to be abiding by Torah. Maybe you didn't understand that. Why Moses was chosen by Yahweh to preach, to teach, even to write the Torah. Why Abraham, all these men? Because even Yahweh saw that they were willing to apply Torah to themselves. And so they were placed as judges. Even in the time of Moses, Yahweh told Moses, seek out able men that they may judge the people. Not men that are not able, not men that are not living by the Torah. Able men, we're not saying no, Yahshua said. But you have to be living Torah to begin with. All of this may be writing on the ground. Yes, the Torah has a lot that they didn't understand. The Torah calls for everyone to live. You cannot go forth and tell someone you should be living by this and then you are not living. And more so to condemn. And this is where they were heading. Are you going to condemn someone when you are not living by anything at all? You don't have that authority. Actually, they are saying that they have it. But this is what Yahshua is saying. You know who the authority is given to? A perfect one. Like me, Yahshua the Messiah. Look how I'm not doing that. So if you have no sin, all authority is given to you. Go, condemn her. So, what they did. So he said, you that is without sin, cast. Let him cast first even that stone, and that you may say, well, I'm without sin, I'm able, I have the authority. I'll cast the first one and then the rest can follow. Again he stooped down back, didn't speak much. He went back down and continued to write, and with his fingers wrote on the ground. It's a lot to write if you would continue on the Torah. And they, when they heard it, went out one by one. If you come here to condemn this woman, to put her to death, you want to do so, you really want to do so. I didn't come to do that, but if you want to do that, saying that you have the right from the Torah, well then, it comes with having no sin. You have no sin. Go ahead. His head is down. You can stone her to death. If you're without sin, stone her, even with me writing and not looking. Why didn't they do it? Why didn't they do it? And they, when they heard what Yahshua said, one by one, they left and they went away. Beginning from the oldest one. We should know better. The oldest should know better. The oldest should have a conscience. You know, our message is going to be based on that today, the conscience. And so the oldest walked away because Yahshua revived his conscience. What? You want to kill her? Remember the Torah. Who is worthy of death in the Torah? Before your eyes, sinner, huh? Are you righteous? Are you not worthy of death? So they all went away, starting from the oldest, and they would follow the leader, as we say. The experienced one, the chief among them. They all walked away. Even to the last, Yahshua was left alone. Who was left alone? What does that say? The righteous one. Everyone went away. None could have taken up any of the stone and cast after her, because their conscience was guilty. They were all guilty. They could not have done as they came to do. Yahshua was left alone, and the woman, when he looked, he saw her there. Where she was, right there in the middle, cherubim in the middle of the circle, and the circle is gone. So actually, what does that say? They had her like in a prison. And lo and behold, she has been freed. She has been freed. No more condemnation left with Yahweh, the perfect one, the one who is able, by the way, too. But will he? Is this why he came? She was left alone with Yahweh. Yahweh lifted up himself and said to her, woman, maybe looking her in the eye, do you understand what is happening here? What has happened? Can you see how close to death thou came? Where are they who came to put you to death? Did no man condemn you? Where are they who came to condemn you, to put you to death? They didn't? They changed their mind? And she's saying, no one, Master. And Yahshua said, neither do I condemn you. You see, a different tone, a different message. Neither do I. He has the power. He could have. But it is not this I came for. I don't condemn you. Throughout this situation, we haven't seen Yahshua speaking against the Torah. We haven't seen him saying that you have done what is right. Woman, you didn't sin. See, nothing like that. Let us continue to listen. I did not condemn you. That doesn't give her the right to continue on. Go your way. You have been set free. I've broken your chains. Your chain that they had around you, that circle, that prison that they had you in. This is why I came to set you free. Go. This represents freedom. The upcoming season we'll be learning the lesson again of redemption and freedom. Your chains are broken. Your prison bars are open. Go your way. He said to her, what? From death to life? Just as Yahshua passed by, in a moment even? From now on, sin no more. You see, Yahshua, yes, he judged, but he didn't condemn her. He judged and he saw her a sinner. Go. Yes, you said, I saw, I know. You're living a life maybe of sin, but I've set you free. Not to continue in sin and wrongdoing, but to change your life and sin no more. What a blessing that she had chosen Yahshua and no one else to be her judge, to be the one that she would go to. If I have to be condemned, let me be condemned by a man that I believe is righteous. But as for you, something about you, your action, your ways, it's not adding up to Torah. Take me to Yahshua. And truly she was blessed with forgiveness. This is what Yahshua had for her. Not the stone that would put her to death, but the love that would forgive her. Go your way, you are set free, but sin no more. What a blessing for her to know that she can live now if only she would continue living a life free from sin. But also she can be condemned if she go back to a life of sin. This is what Yahshua is actually saying. I may not be here the next time around. I'm going to be here alone anymore. If you continue in sin, next time they see you, they're not going to bring you to me, but they may kill you. So go and don't sin no more. Let your life be a changed life. He went on to say, I am come the light. The light is full of love. The light is full of goodness. The light is full of mercy. In the beginning, John said that word came to bring life and light to mankind. Those that walk in darkness saw the light. She experienced the light. I am the light of the world, and he that follows me, if you listen to my voice and follow my instruction, that when you walk in darkness, no more sin will be in your life. Why was this woman still living a life of adultery, being so close to you that you can actually see her in the very ark and bring her? Were you a good example to her? Were you reaching out to her in love and actually trying to help her to change that life? Look what I did. I didn't commit a stone over her. I had the authority. But I reached out with love. And I showed to her what Yahweh requires of her. To live a life free from sin. This is what it takes. You don't have to kill anyone. You can help them as much as you can by shining the light their way. In Acts chapter 23. So Yahshua remains the light of this world. He is our example of doing good, not condemning. Yes, we may judge certain situations, but we don't have the power to condemn. It is through Yahweh, Yahshua the Messiah, is dealing with love in Acts chapter 23. Verse 1. And Paul, looking steadfast at the council, said, Brethren, I have lived before Elohim in all good conscience until this day. This man, as we said in other places, imitate me as I imitate Yahshua the Messiah. He followed in the example that Yahshua the Messiah left. He was living a life pleasing to Almighty Yahweh. The scribes and the Pharisees we see there, without conscience. Without conscience. You are living not to please Yahweh. You are falling short in so many different ways. But you came with stones. You came with stones to kill this woman. Haven't you a conscience? Yahshua had awakened their conscience. And so their conscience was proving them guilty of what they were about to do. Paul is saying, as he looked them in the eyes, he said, I live before Elohim in all good conscience. How is our conscience today as we strive to please Almighty Yahweh? Living every day, we must have a conscience. Until this day, he said, before Elohim, his conscience is good. The title of the message today is Examining Our Conscience. Examining our conscience. And a lot of people take that for granted, and most people dare go into this subject of the conscience. If you think of your conscience, you are thinking of that which guides you morally. And it aids you along. The scripture speaks a lot about it, especially in the time of Yahshua and the apostles. Before then, it was more of you as behavioral patterns and the life you live and doing what is good, and you are told. But when Yahshua came and the apostles each, they understand it is something within us, our conscience. One of the dictionary definition for conscience is a person's moral sense of right and wrong. Each individual conscience may be different, but that It is that moral sense of right and wrong. So it goes with your knowledge too, as we learned last evening. If you have the knowledge of something that is right or something that is wrong, that is going to build your conscience then upon that. So you know this is right and you know this is wrong. And if you are approached to do the wrong, you have that in your conscience. Your conscience will say, friend, you know that is not right. You know. So knowledge is what builds your conscience. Your conscience is built on knowledge. So if you don't have the knowledge of something, well then your conscience will be able to help you in that area. Or you may be led wrong according to your conscience, how it is built. So first of all, this is why the Apostle Paul was saying here in Acts 23, before Elohim, his conscience. So our conscience must be built by Elohim, the word of Elohim, so that all things that we do will be before Elohim. We will have that knowledge. So he said, I live before Elohim in all good conscience. So we take the word of Yahweh, we take the wisdom and the knowledge that is given here to frame and to build our conscience. And this is going to aid and help us in doing the right. Because we approach with a situation, whether we are emotionally disturbed or in a situation where we have to make a snap decision, our conscience is going to come in here very, very helpful. So someone is pressing you, if you not do that, I'll do this to you. And your conscience come into play. I can't do that because I know it's wrong. If you have the conscience molded by the word of Yahweh, you will understand what I'm saying. No matter what the individual threatened you with, you just would not do the wrong. And so this is why we notice men in the past, the word is not used in the Hebrew scriptures for some reason. But we saw that they had a conscience. It came into play in the so-called New Testament. But think about the faithful of old. Men like Daniel. Didn't Daniel have a conscience? And when they tell Daniel, do this or? No, I know. And the 3 Hebrew children, didn't they have a conscience? When they say, I know. That knowledge they had, if Yahweh does not deliver us, we are not going to do it because it is wrong. It is against our conscience. They had that. And many other instances we see where the conscience came into play. And it was very, very, very helpful to them. On the other hand, we see a situation where some men had no conscience. Those who break Yahweh's law, they know and they did worse than their fathers. So many kings did that. Saul, for instance, one that was so close to Yahweh at a point, loses his conscience, was branded as with a hot iron. And he went after David. Just don't care, I want to kill him. Bring him here. Wow. Where is his conscience? Branded, we will look at that too. As with a hot iron, it can be. It must be molded and fashioned and even kept in a good way, as Paul said, with and by the word of Yahweh. Very important. This is why Yahshua said we don't live by bread only. Every day we need to add to our conscience what is good, and not what is evil. Or if we leave our conscience this way, it can become branded as with a hot iron. After a period of time, you just don't care. You do anything, as we see some people that say, this man, conscience boy. Yeah, they just leave it like that. They never feed the conscience, that moral sense within them to make the difference between right and wrong. Very important. So that's one of the dictionary definitions, a person's moral sense of right and wrong. That those who don't know, so their conscience is going to be different. But those of us who know what is right and what is wrong, our conscience is going to be a great help for us. Viewed as acting as a guide to one's behavior. All right? It is acting as a guide. And think about that. How helpful it can be to us. Even the dictionary definition of conscience, this is why the word is used in the Greek. All right? It is acting as a guide to one's behavior. And this is why we will say this person don't have a conscience, because of how they are behaving. Now, if we have a conscience, or a good conscience, we'll behave in a certain way. If we don't have a conscience, or we have a bad or evil conscience, as we will see, then we'll act in the opposite way, not all the time. All right? So it is viewed as acting as a guide to one's behavior. So a lot of people don't look into that because it's a kind of personal thing. So people don't like to go into that area by way of study or messages, dealing with the conscience, because every one of us must have a good conscience to make it to the end in the kingdom of Yahweh. Excuse me. Another dictionary definition is the part of you that judges, the part of you that judges how moral your own action are. And that's a nice definition to taking it a little deeper from another dictionary. The conscience is a part of you that judges how moral your own actions are, and make you feel guilty about bad things. So we can see how good and how helpful is the conscience. So it's very important to have it molded and made in the right way and have a good conscience. So that part of you that judges things, so that you will say, well, I can't do that now. I shouldn't do that now. That ain't right, in spite of all. So that what you hear within you, saying things like that, it is your conscience coming into play. It judges things, situation, and say, no, I can't do that. It is not right to do that. About our own action, it comes into play. Makes you feel guilty if you have done what you know is wrong. This is where the conscience is going to come in. So you're knowing it is wrong, and you end up going and do it. The conscience now is going to come to condemn you within you, because it acts like that judge, and it's going to say, you know that is wrong, why you do it? And then you, the individual, feels guilty about that. So the conscience is very helpful on this wise for us to do the right thing, so that in case we make a mistake, it is going to remain the way how it is molded by us. It is going to remain that way, and it's going to say, you didn't do wrong, you didn't do right. After you do, it's going to say that. So it makes you feel guilty, makes you feel bad. So okay, we go back to the situation with the woman caught in adultery. The scribes and the Pharisees bringing her to YAHWEH. What conscience they had? It was not right. It was maybe an evil conscience, maybe branded or something. They have power, they have this, they have authority, do as they please to anybody. When they came to YAHWEH noticed, he didn't talk to them. He started to write. And he said one thing to them, you that without sin, cast the first stone. They hear, but they err, and it entered into, and it went to their conscience. Because they were taught from the Torah, but they allow their conscience to become not pleasing to Yahweh. And YAHWEH spoke. He sent a message, a word to their conscience, waking it up and say, tell them what you have to. They don't want to hear me. Tell them what you have to. Their conscience say, you are guilty, man. You sinned earlier. You break the law, you remember yesterday, and you're hiding it from everybody? You want to stone this lady now? YAHWEH didn't have to say much. Their conscience. He had awakened their conscience with the word. It can connect with the word of Yahweh. It can connect with truth, but people feed it the wrong. They feed it with evil. Yahshua sent that message to their conscience. And so, what they had to do, turn their backs and walk away. They were guilty. The conscience was saying, you know what? You know, in truth, you're the first one should be stoned. By the way. So yes, also, it is there to show us that we are guilty when we do what is wrong. So that path of you that judges how moral your own action are and makes you feel guilty about bad things that you have done or things you feel responsible for. And this is our conscience coming into play. So sometimes you sit and you study, and you know, this is all because of my mistake. By the way, I'm feeling a bit guilty about that, about my mistake, about the wrong that I've done. I'm responsible for it. And it is for good. It is for good. Because when Yahshua sent the woman away, he told her, you have a conscience too. Remember, you really committed the act. You are worthy of death. But you have been forgiven. Take this and put it on your conscience. Go and sin no more. Because you are responsible for what you have done. Live to please Yahweh. So examining our conscience. How is yours? What about mine? I can't do it for you, and you cannot do it for me. But we can make our conscience good, and it is going to help us every day. That's the next individual, if you want to put it that way, in us. The next friend that we can have so close to us, that we can pass it by. What do you think about that? If we mold and we fashion our conscience, it becomes a storehouse for good if we put the right things into it, so to speak. If we feed that, we bank up righteousness in our conscience, knowledge with the understanding in our conscience. When we are tempted, we can invite our conscience to be our help. To judge matters, we can call out our conscience, and it is going to help us. It's going to remind us of what we should and shouldn't do. Don't brand it with a hot iron. Don't say, you stay there and do what I say. And don't feed it with evil. Feed the conscience with good. And it is going to be that next inner help. You don't have to go to anyone outside. The next inner help that is with you at all times. Even though someone is not right there at hand. Wherever you are, you will have that help with you. And your conscience, as they say, let your conscience be your guide. The old people used to tell you that. Well, go. I'm not going to be there, they say. But let your conscience be your guide. Because they had trained us. They had molded us in a certain way. And they say, well, you have to go. You can't be here all the time. So let your conscience be your guide. So we as people of Yahweh, if we would mold and fashion our conscience and make it good, we are going to be blessed. We're going to be helped. Because for trials, it's going to come our way. For difficult times, it's going to come. Persecution, it is going to come. All of it is going to come. But we need help to overcome. And our conscience is a personal help. We need to develop and have a good conscience. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12. For our glory is this, the testimony of our conscience, and in holiness and serenity of Elohim, not in fleshly wisdom, but in the grace of Yahweh. We behave, what is the term, ourselves in the world and more abundantly towards you. A very high verse, if you would say. There's a lot into it, but we have to bisect it, go into it, and understand what it is saying. Great knowledge is there, used here by the Apostle Paul. Our glorying, which we glory in and praise in, the testimony of our conscience. We can speak then of the goodness of our conscience, the help that our conscience bring to us. Praise Yahweh, in other words, we've been molding and fashioning our conscience so that we are not like other men. But we have that good conscience, in other words, he's saying. That in holiness, you see, this is what they use, the holiness of Yahweh, to build their conscience. And serenity of Elohim, it surrounds the conscience of the true worshipper, because we are called to be holy, not in fleshly wisdom. You see, we need that wisdom, we need that knowledge and the understanding to aid our conscience, to have it good. We cannot find that in the world. We just say those people don't have a conscience, the things that they're doing. But in Yahweh, we seek wisdom from the Word. Not in fleshly wisdom, but in the grace. The mercies, the unmerited kindness of Yahweh. We find that which the conscience need to develop into a good conscience. We behave now because of our conscience. Our behavioral pattern is going to be pleasing to Yahweh. Like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, like Daniel, and the 3 Hebrew brothers, and many others. They are going to behave in a certain way. We behave ourselves in the world, even like Joseph, who was in Pharaoh's house, who was elevated to a very high position in Egypt, the world, yet he behaved himself when he was taken by Potiphar's wife. How was Joseph's behavior? He had a conscience. He said, no, I cannot do this and sin against Yahweh. His conscience came into play, even though she was promising him. And they were promising him so much of Egypt. He behaved himself wisely, with a wisdom not of Egypt, not of the world, as anyone else would do. We behave ourselves in the world, and more abundantly towards you as brethren. How we should be towards all mankind, and especially towards those of the household of faith. He's saying this is how we live and behave ourselves. For we write no other thing to you than what you read or even knowledge. We're not going to bring you any word from outside. We're going to bring you from the scriptures, the knowledge from the word of Almighty Yahweh. And I hope that you will acknowledge to the end that it is so. Right? We write no other thing to you than that you read or even acknowledge. And I hope that you will acknowledge, do so, and say yes until the end. As you also did acknowledge us in part, that we are your glory, even as you also are ours in the day of our sovereign, Yahshua the Messiah. So the Apostle Paul wants his listeners to continue to acknowledge the truth, the word, the good conscience that they had towards them. And if they remain that way, they're going to be found pleasing in the sight of Yahweh when Yahshua the Messiah comes. In 1 Timothy, as we move on a bit here, in examining our conscience, 1 Timothy 1, verse 5. But the end of the charge is love out of a pure heart and a good conscience. Well put by him here as he writes to Timothy. Our charge is love. This is what we are charged with, to keep, to see that we love Yahweh above all, to love our neighbors as ourselves, to love all mankind, and do it out of a pure heart and out of a good conscience, because the conscience must be good and not evil. Some people have an evil conscience. Some people have one that is branded, no good. Ours must be good. The good conscience is very important to the believer, as I mentioned earlier. We must have it as the closest friend that judges situation for us and need us to make the right decision at all times. For which things some having swerved have turned aside to vain talking, because they have swerved away from the good conscience, the truth, the word, designed to be teachers of the Lord, though they understand neither what they say nor what they confidently affirm. You see, without the knowledge, your conscience is going to be messed up. You have to know and understand. But we know, we have the knowledge. This is how our conscience is molded into a good one. That the law is good. And we know that? Didn't we learn that the law is good? This is what we should use to mold our conscience. So then when we are called to do according to the law, we shouldn't have a problem, because it is good. And when our conscience is saying, that is lawful, or that is not lawful, we should listen to that. But we know that the law is good. We have that knowledge. If a man use it lawfully, yeah, he's using it lawfully. That is good. It's knowing this, that the law is not made for the righteous man, but for the lawless, the unruly, for the wicked, for sinners, unholy, profane, murderers, fathers and murderers of mothers, manslayers, fornicators, abusers of themselves with men, men stealers, liars, false swears. The law is made for those in such a situation that need it, to help themselves. There be any other thing contrary to the sound doctrine. According to the good tidings of the glory of the blessed Elohim, which was committed to my trust. I thank him that enables me, even Yahshua the Messiah, our Savior, for that he counted me faithful, appointed me to his service. So yes, his conscience is saying to him, you are a faithful servant, because you are living by the Torah. Also in Hebrews 13, and you can see there 17 and 18 of the good conscience. Hebrews 13. Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit, for they watch on behalf of your soul, as they that shall give account, that they may do this with joy, and not with grief, for they were unprofitable for you. Pray for us, for we are persuaded that we have a good conscience, designed to live honorable in all things. We are persuaded, he said, that we have a good conscience. Once it be molded, fashioned, built by the word of Yahweh, it is definitely going to be good. Back to 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 18 and 19. I commit to you, this charge I commit to you, Timothy, my child, according to the prophecies which led the way to you, that by them you may war the good warfare, holding faith and a good conscience. This is the conscience that the true worshiper should have. And we have learned what the conscience is and what it does. We must have a good conscience, which some of them have thrust from them, made shipwreck concerning the faith. If we allow our conscience to be branded as with a hot iron, to turn evil, to lay dormant within us, we are going to be led astray by this human in us, the flesh. Holding faith and a good conscience, which some of them have trust, they allow it to go loose, and they made themselves shipwrecked, were destroyed where the faith is concerned. Let's have a good conscience. Let's look at a pure conscience. In 1 Timothy 3, he speaks of the pure conscience. It must not have anything that defiles. It must not be a compromiser. We cannot make it that way. It must be pure. It must be clean, righteous, and good. Allow the word of Yahweh to mold and to make our consciences. 1 Timothy 3:8. We see the pure conscience. Deacon in like manner must be grave, not double-tongued, not given too much wine, not greedy of filthy lucre, holding the mystery of the faith in a pure conscience. Those who are ministering servants are called to have a pure conscience, not a biased conscience, holding the mystery of the faith in a pure conscience. And let this first be proved, then let them serve as deacons. If they be blameless, calling to be pure in conscience. Women in like manner must be grave, not slanderers, temperate, faithful in all things. This is how the conscience must be molded, whether male or female, man or woman. Let deacons be husband of one wife, ruling children in their own house as well. But they that have served well as deacons gain to themselves a good standing and great boldness in the faith, which is in Messiah Yeshua. So yes, it must be good. It must be pure. It must be clean. There are those who have conscience that are branded, Paul mentioned also. We must not become like that. That people may say, we don't have a conscience. And we do things wrongfully, judge wrongfully. And then it's just nothing. And not seeing ourselves responsible for the outcome of what we have done. A branded conscience in 1 Timothy 4, verse 1. The Spirit speaks, the Spirit says expressly, and in the latter times some shall fall away from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrine of demons. See that they were in the faith once. What they did, they fell away. Why? They gave heed to another spirit that is influencing them. And that spirit is doing something, first of all, to their conscience. And if a spirit knows where to attack, we must guard our consciences. They give heed to seducing spirits and even to teachings of devils or doctrines of demons. Through the hypocrisy of men that speak lies. Don't follow anyone. Follow the word. Branded now in their own conscience as with a hot iron. burning away that good path of the conscience with hypocrisy of men and doctrine of demons, lies and evil, allowing self sometime to come in and destroy the good conscience that was once there. Hypocrisy, branded in their own conscience as with a hot iron. Who can remove that? Not so easy. When you take a hot iron and you brand something, you stamp it. Wow, that mark remains. Yes, it remains there. We must be very careful that we not led astray, even by our own conscience. And he went on to put examples there. So let us seek to have a good, a pure conscience, pleasing to Almighty Yahweh. What about a defiled conscience? Some people have conscience, but they still contaminate that conscience by allowing it to be influenced by certain things that are not good, and so it becomes defiled. If we have been in such a situation, we have to see that we cleanse our conscience as we approach the New Year, the Passover and Days of Unleavened Bread. Remove anything that defiles our conscience. Titus 1, verse 15. Says, to the pure all things are pure, but to them that are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. How serious? The pure, we remain pure. We see things that are pure, we see it pure. This is what it means. See it with the eyes of the word of Yahweh. To them that are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. Our conscience is defiled. Then the right is going to be looking as the wrong. And vice versa is going to be sad. Because our conscience is defiled. And this is what we notice with those who have a conscience that is defiled. They cannot see that it is right. They cannot understand. They are seeing in reverse. To them that are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. But both their mind, notice, and their conscience are defiled. It's very sad to have a defiled conscience when you cannot see. So many people left the faith. They turn away from Almighty Yahweh, living a life of sin. And they are saying it is approved by Almighty Yahweh. They don't see the law again the way it should be seen or once seen by them. They don't see that pure life again important to live. To them that are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. So live however you want to live, they say. It's not important that you do this or that. Both them and their minds, conscience, gone, defiled. It's a very serious situation. Let us examine our conscience and see that it is good and pleasing to Yahweh. If our conscience is saying to us we are doing wrong, let us stop. Let us stop. Check the word of Yahweh again. Let it be supporting and supported by the word of Yahweh. Don't neglect the truth. Purity is important with Almighty Yahweh. We must be pure before Him, or else we are going to be rejected by Him. I'm going to close in Hebrew 9 as we look at a cleansed conscience now. We're going to cleanse ourselves as we prepare for the upcoming season. In Hebrews chapter 9 and verse 14. How much more shall the blood of the Messiah, who through the eternal Spirit offered himself without blemish to Yahweh, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim? It's very important for us, year after year. Have we been looking into this, our conscience? We seek to eat unleavened bread. We seek to look at other aspects of our lives. But have we been looking into our conscience? And most times not. So another year comes and we end up remaining the same individual because we are following our conscience. But is our conscience pure and good? If it is pure and good, designed and formed by the word of Yahweh, then it will always tell us where we are going wrong. It will bring us back on track. And we are going to grow and grow year after year. The word here is telling us that the blood of the Messiah, who through the eternal Spirit offered without blemish, so pure and holy, is going to cleanse our conscience. As we approach the Passover, we are reminded that Yahshua tells us, my blood is able to give you life. If you drink of this cup, he said, you shall live. If you eat of me, shall have eternal life. We have to prepare our conscience to have it cleansed and purified so that it can be pure and holy for another year before Almighty Yahweh, so that we can receive blessing from Him. Take in your notes, Hebrews 10, 22 to 25. We have to put away the evil conscience. And we do that by taking in the Word, the cleansing and the washing of the water with the Word. The blood of Yahshua is able to remove whatever we put away from our lives. Look into our conscience now. Not just a physical aspect of our lives, but that which is within us, speaking to us every day, closest to us. See that it is being controlled by the word of Yahweh. That's Hebrews 10, 22, 25, an evil conscience. And 1 Peter 2, 18 to 20 tell us that we should be led and guided by a good conscience. Leading or guiding conscience, we find in 1 Peter 2, 18 and 20. When we have a conscience that is good, then we can allow it to work with the Ruach HaKodesh so that we can be led and guided in the righteous path every day of our lives. May Yahweh bless us as we continue on preparing ourselves, not just for the upcoming season, but for the return of Yahshua. Our conscience must be good, pure and clean. When we see Yahshua the Messiah, that we will rise to meet him in the air and have joy forevermore, as we have been working even on our consciences, bringing it pure and acceptable in his sight. May our